Shabbat Shalom to everyone. This week, our custom is to read Parshat Parah, our purification from Tumah, from uncleanliness when we're in contact with the dead body. And the classic reason is because in preparation for Passover, and to bring the Passover sacrifice, everyone would have to be tahor, would have to cleanse himself in preparation to bring the sacrifice. That's how the custom began. And Parshat Parah is famous because the law of Parah Aduma apparently doesn't have any obvious reason because it's called a chok. But if we follow the Rambam's approach in the end of Sefer Karbonot and the end of Sefer Avodah, even though there's no obvious reason for a chok, we have to try our best to try to understand them. And it's very interesting in the law of Parah Aduma, first the word Aduma, which sounds like the word adama. Remember the word is adama, is land or earth. And a lot of commentators, especially modern ones, claim that Parah Aduma doesn't mean necessarily a red heifer, but rather a reddish-brown heifer, because the color Aduma relates to the word adama, and good fertile soil is a reddish-brown. What's most interesting is the first procedure that we talk about in Parshat Parah, in chapter 19 in Sefer Bamidbar, that we're going to read from after, is that we take this cow and the Kohen sprinkles the blood, and then he burns it, and then we add some different things into the burning. But when we're finished, we have what's called efer, aleph peresh, which is ashes. And that's going to be in Pasuk Tet and Yud, Vasav Ishtort efer apara, with an aleph. When we go to Pasuk Yudalad in the second procedure, when we prepare the sprinkling water, we're told as follows, in Pasuk Yudalad it says, Zot Torah Adam Kimut Ba'ohem, and then here's the procedure for what we're going to do for when someone becomes tamei, when he becomes impure by touching a dead body. We're told in verse 17, for the person who's impure, we take from the afar with an ayin now, which is strange. Till now it's been called efer, these ashes. For some reason we're calling these ashes now afar, which is the word for dust. But what's interesting, we have afar mina aduma, which should remind us of the way man was created back in Sefer Bereshit, in Perek Bet Pasuk Zayin. God created man, afar min adama, and after man sins, since being thrown out of Gan Eden, the famous line where God tells Adam HaRishon, B'zeh atapecha toch halechem, in the end of chapter 3, and you're going to have to work the adama that you were taken from, and you're going to return to that land, ki afar ata ve'afar tashuv. Man's mortality is highlighted in the fact he's made afar min adama, and after his death he returns to afar min adama. So it could be that when a person is in contact with a dead body, or basically he's in contact with death and confronts death, it's definitely a depressing time of life. It's sometimes a building time of life where a person has various thoughts about his own mortality, about the loved one he might have lost, or just encountering death in general. And he needs time out, they call it 7 days of not being able to go visit God. But then we have a process of tara from tumat met. And what's interesting, we take the symbol of man's mortality, this afar min aduma, reminding us afar min adama, with mayim chayim. If there's one symbol of life in the Torah, it's water. Water, everything grows from water. Water is like the essence of life. It's the beginning of creation. Remember, there's all the creation happens from water. And therefore, this sort of dialectic the man faces every time he encounters death, where on the one hand, recognizing his mortality, at the same time, recognizing the importance of life and the vitality of life and the need to make meaning of life, the mixture between this afar together with mayim chayim, I think is very symbolic, and therefore the job of the Kohen, when he goes to visit the person who's encountered death and has to prepare him to return to life, it's not just your tummy for 7 days. You have to, after your tumah, you need to get up from these 7 days, and you have to return to normal life. I need, on day 3 and day 7, I do something very meaningful, where the Kohen sprinkles the blood upon the person, and on day 7 afterwards, he can return to his day-to-day life. He's able now to visit God in the temple. But I think the laws of Shiva that we have, and unfortunately we've had too many of, reflect this exact same dialectic where there's a need to deal with death, to take time out, to remember, but we have to get over that and continue with life. Especially this year, there's two very special connections to Pesach. Remember, the Kohen takes an ezov to sprinkle this mayim chayim with this mixture. And in chapter 12, in Parshat Chodesh, which we're going to read next week, We take the Ezov to sprinkle the blood of the Korban Pesach on our doorpost, if you remember, in chapter 12 in Sefer Shemot. So we have a bit of a connection to Pesach itself, but even more so this year, where we've encountered so much death, unfortunately, in our recent war. But at the same time, we have to continue our life and continue living, continue building. This year, I think reading Parsha Parah is very meaningful because this challenge, which this dialectic reflects, of the mixture of afar min adama, or mortality, at the same time the need for life and to grow and to encounter God, that's the feelings we have as we prepare for Pesach this year, together with our prayers, that God will bring peace to our country and we'll have our hostages back and we'll find a way to take this terrible situation and grow from it and build a better country. Everyone should have a Shabbat Shalom and a good month in preparation for Pesach this year.